This particular release, or reissue rather, comes from Sirena, which is Sirena. This is a reissue of a 1977 album on Sky. I think that was the original label it came from. And it's a 5-piece proggy, a prog band with slight hard rock edges, you could say. Lead singer is a lady, Jennifer Hensel, a little bit sort of Janis Joplin, but smoother, probably, I would say. You've also got some Moog in there, some Moog analog synth, some Mellotron as well. So you've got a little bit of sort of slightly Camel-like instrumental at the back there, but as I say, you have that hard rock mix, but overall prog, just think prog, but with those elements sort of mixed in. This is the band's debut. Excellent album, highly recommended again. Inside you can see the band, and we've got some lyrics and some credits information too. Let me just quickly show you that. Next is this 9-track 10-inch vinyl from German audiophile company Bear Family, and this is pretty darned important because when Carl Perkins went into the studios at Sun to record Blue Suede Shoes, he did a couple of tentative songs before he did Blue Suede Shoes. The impression he gave everybody was that he had to be sort of dragged kicking and screaming into the studio. You know, who was this hillbilly? But the tracks on this album, how many are there? 4 tracks which are on this particular release that were recorded 2 years previously in a little studio in Tennessee. And this shows that this guy knew what he was doing and was at full speed there and then. One of the tracks, Good Rockin' Tonight, was recorded almost 2 years before Elvis Presley recorded his version in the Sun Studios. So this is important for rockabilly history. In addition to that, there are 5 other tracks which are outtakes, fairly rare outtakes from his work at Sun. This is the first time these particular tracks have appeared on vinyl. So this is important. If you're into rockabilly, if you're into rock and roll, if you like Mr. Perkins himself, you gotta have this. Let me just flip this around. That picture was taken when Carl was opening a hardware store in somewhere in Tennessee, and over his left shoulder is his brother, Jay. There you go. Nice little picture there, which their family have discovered. Very nice. The actual vinyl itself has been pressed on white vinyl. You get a free CD, and there it is. And you get a booklet, which again, brilliant. Has the full story. It's the full story, and it is a story, and it's well worth reading, I'll tell you. Next is another set, yet another set. This one is from The Doors, the band's 1969 album, Soft Parade. And here is the package with the shrink wrap on. You see you get a little sticker at the top here. What you get is a vinyl LP, which is the album. You also get 3 CDs, and you have around 2 hours of unreleased material, rarities. This numbered limited set has been remastered by Bernie Grundman, so you're in good hands here, folks. So you'll find some overdubs here, you'll find some extended versions, you'll find different mixes. There's a whole heap of stuff here. Let's look inside. On one side you'll find the vinyl, and over on the other side here we can see the 3 CDs. Very nice indeed. Next we have a new album by a post-rock band, 65 Days of Static. Although, is it okay to say post-rock nowadays? I don't know. Lots of people call them alternative indie or experimental. I just think of them as post-rock, and deal with it. This new album is called Replicr 2019, but Replicr spelled R-E-P-L-I-C-R. And it's a beautiful work of art. It really is. How can you describe it? Well, words, you know, the old cliches like minimalism, soundscapes, haunting, all those words sort of spring into your head when you listen to this. Varying tempos, there's a real sort of prog element to this work. Lots of guitars and treated synths, and it's a beautiful construction of sound. But the intriguing thing about this particular edition, the vinyl edition, is on the sticker, which I've now removed unfortunately, it did say that it was mastered for vinyl. So it's been mastered for this format, which I find intriguing. Now, You can compare and contrast yourself, because there is a CD version featured inside. And in addition to the CD and in addition to the vinyl, you also get a booklet. Let me quickly flick through this. This is almost like an art creation in itself. A beautiful album. Go get it, guys. Lovely. Next is a reissue of a 2002 album, Taking Back Sunday. Tell all your friends. There you go. Very nice. And you can see the sticker up there. This is with the shrink wrap still on. This is not a gatefold. This is just a single sleeve jobby. And there's the rear. This is pop punk, hardcore, very much like The Movie Life, if you know that particular band. In fact, one of the members of Taking Back Sunday was in The Movie Life. Next up is an album which was initially released in 1979 on Rough Trade. In fact, Rough Trade's Jeff Travis was a co-producer of this particular album. It's from a girl group, The Raincoats, the debut album by the band, and a little cracker it is as well. It's just over, I don't know, just over half an hour. And you could say, if you were sort of lazy about it, you could say, oh yeah, great punk album. I wouldn't necessarily call it a punk album. Punk's in it, punk's part of it, yes. Punk is infused all the way through it, but there's more. It's a little bit sort of slightly experimental. There's the, you can hear the classic indie, what indie really should be seen and heard as. You can just hear the edges of indie in this album, and there are strange time signatures in here. There's real experimentation. There's real searching for just something different, as if they've just seen punk as being limiting, which it was. It was a constricted musical philosophy, I think. Punk, great, wonderful, groundbreaking, revolutionary, but restricted nevertheless. And the Raincoats saw this, and they took, even in '79, they took the genre on a pace. And you can hear that difference. And there's some really interesting stuff in this album. All of the Raincoats output is essential, but this particular debut, doubly so. So go get it, guys. Now we have an album called The Final Bow. And it's a bit of a sad one, really, if this is actually the case. It's a live album, and it's by The Pretty Things, and it's on the Madfish label, and it's a gatefold, a live performance from the O2 in 2018 in London. It features guests Van Morrison and David Gilmour, and it's a sort of the best of 3 separate sets which have been stitched together over 25 tracks, and it's The Pretty Things' apparently last bow, which sounds very sad, but I hope there's more. So basically what this album does is infuse 55 years of artistry. Good for them. Look out for this one, guys. Speaker's Corner in Germany. They do things in a particularly fine and audiophile manner. For example, all of their work is analog. They go to great lengths to achieve an analog chain right from the beginning, right to when you hold albums in your hand. The label is also very keen on letting you know that they pay all the rights fees, all of the band, all of the artists, everyone who should be paid gets paid. Not always the case with certain labels in the world, but Speaker's Corner, they do the right thing. Also, in terms of the production, they use one of the very best pressing plants. This is Pallas, Pallas, top flight. Any records that have been through Pallas get my seal of approval. Classic album by Aretha Franklin. This is Aretha live at the Fillmore West. This is on a gatefold. There's the rear. Happy people. from 1971, originally released on the Atlantic label. We have the flowering of the original Charles Lloyd Quartet, recorded in concert apparently. This album features Keith Jarrett on piano and Jack DeJohnette, I hope I've said that right, on drums. This album was recorded during the group's third European tour, and it was recorded in Oslo. We have another jazz outing, Elvin Jones, Midnight Walk. This was originally released on the Atlantic label, and it has some, well, stupendous talents. Let me just read from the back here while I'm showing you this. Elvin himself on drums, of course. And then we are looking at Tad Jones, trumpet, Hank Mobley, tenor sax, Dollar Brand, piano, Donald Moore, bass, and George Abend on percussion. We have one from Cooder, and I wonder what this one's called. Wonder if you can guess. This is from 1978, and we're looking at music here which Cooder, well, I've said this before, people call him a musicologist, and he doesn't really like that term, but he does sort of dig and he explores the history of genres, doesn't he? And he's done it here. So we're looking at Jelly Roll Morton songs, and we're looking at Big Spiderback, some classic old jazz reinterpreted by Cooder. Wonderful stuff. From a top flight audiophile label, Pure Pleasure tends to centre around jazz. They do other stuff, but jazz is a core of what they do. Jazz reissues, and they will look at classic jazz, but also one or two different jazz releases. They will poke into little corners, stuff that you might not be either aware of, or you may have half forgotten, or worthy productions which maybe at the time were not well received, but you really should look at now. And this particular one from Pharoah Sanders is one of those, called, how do you pronounce it? Izipho Sam. There you are. I can't. It's a difficult one. Izipho Sam. I'll put it up to camera and you can read it. In brackets, my gifts, anyway. So it's a fascinating album. It was initially released by Strata East. Is it Strata East? Yes, in 1973. Here it is anyway. This is with the shrink wrap still on, so you still have the Pure Pleasure label there. Let's put it up to camera. That's what I'm trying to sort of articulate. Anyway, fascinating album this, because Sanders was with Coltrane during his last years, and I don't know whether he took this from Coltrane, probably obviously his own inner talents, his own inner direction, but maybe some Coltrane influence too. He was breaking out of the jazz genre. He wanted to explore music, and good for him. So this album does this. It's jazz, yes, but you can hear him experimenting with rhythms and tonality. You can hear him. I mean, there's 30, if you include Sanders himself, there's 13 people, 13 people on this album. And they take the music in a wide variety of directions. So you get, there's some vocal here, vocal with Leon Thomas provides the vocals. So you get a very rich soul crooning with Leon. But you also get some slightly avant-garde music too. You get some avant-garde vocals from Leon Thomas. He likes his yodeling, there's old Leon. And that reminds me of the Italian prog rock band Area. The lead vocalist on that for that band had a similar yodeling tendency, and this sounds similar. But the nature of the instrumentation behind Thomas's vocals is fascinating. It's almost separate. It's quite hypnotic, and it sort of noodles around in the background. And there's a great contrast between the vocals and his backing band, as it were, as he's singing. Later on, there are some beautifully varied percussion instruments. Later on, that would be on the title track. I'm going to pronounce it again. Izipho Zam. There you are. Hopefully that's better. That's about 28 minutes, is it? Yeah, 28 minutes, 50 seconds. It's a slow building track. Lots of cacophonous percussion with horns coming in progressively and becoming very dominant later on. Avant-garde, possibly, but there's melody in there too. And a fascinating album. This is one to get to know. Give this time. let it build in your consciousness, and it will reward you. And that's it for this video. I'd like to thank you for joining me, and hopefully you can join me on the next video too. Until then, I'll see you soon.